Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for hopping online with us today. Looks like we've got a good number of you ready for the webinar. Wanted to kick things off here. Look, we are so excited to be talking about the mobile games industry. Obviously, this is a very challenging time for the world and for our colleagues across the world who are dealing with the adjustments of working from home, the adjustment to the new business challenges and strains on the business. I think we all could agree that we're very fortunate to be in an industry that is seeing a surge in usage. Our audiences are growing. People have more time to spend interacting with their favorite games. And so it's such a great time for us to be talking about ad monetization in mobile games and the untapped potential that represents. My name is Nate Morgan. I'm the Global Gaming Strategy Lead at Audience Network. I'm a 10-year mobile games veteran. I started out just after the App Store was launched back in the late 2000 aughts at a company called NG Moko. From there, we were acquired by DNA out of Japan, went to Zynga after that, and then spent 3 years at Network, another mobile gaming company, before joining Facebook last year to focus on the games business. Very honored and privileged to have Amir Gudrati from App Annie. He's Director of Market Insights. He's been at App Annie for 7 years and 3 years at ComScore. Prior to that, Amir is an amazing colleague and someone who's been an incredible partner for us as we commissioned this App Annie report on the mobile gaming in-app ads ecosystem. So why did we do this? We really wanted to understand and address with data some of the concerns that folks might have around in-app ads and monetizing via ads. You know, back when I started in in-app ads in 2009, it was a far different ecosystem with far different ad formats and yield than it is today, and it's a very exciting place to join. If you haven't done ad monetization before, you should know that ad monetization is growing at an unprecedented rate. It's growing at a faster rate than IAP. There are amazing and innovative formats that you can use to monetize your audience, formats that your players will love to integrate with. And we just want to help you through this study understand more of what the potential impact is when you dive into that. So before I turn it over to Amir, I wanted to just share a couple of housekeeping things. Amir is going to take you through the App Annie study. He is going to give you a comprehensive overview of what they discovered, what they found. And throughout that presentation, if you have questions, please use the GoToWebinar control panel to enter your questions, and we will get to as many of them as we can during the Q&A at the end of the presentation. Following the overview of the App Annie report, I'll talk a little bit about Audience Network and the formats and support that we can provide to you in your ad monetization efforts. Additionally, when the webinar is over, there will be a survey, and we would ask that you take a few moments from your day and give us some feedback so we can incorporate that into future webinars as well. And with that, let's kick this thing off. Amir, let's get started. Please take it away, and thank you so much for being here today.
All right, perfect. So I mean, we're gonna start things off talking about the impact of in-app advertising. So looking at 2020 as a whole, right? On the next slide, we expect mobile spend to hit about $380 billion by the end of the year, right? And $240 billion of that is coming specifically from mobile ad spend. So for mobile, there's a lot more core gaming that's being able to be used on devices. People are playing for longer sessions. Those are games that traditionally haven't used as much in-app advertising, but there's a strong opportunity there in terms of finding ways to kind of incorporate that in. And one of the things that we've seen is just that can be a good way to grow that overall pie of the monetization strategies that you're able to have when it really comes down to mobile. It's just really about doing it in the right way. So mobile's growing, mobile ad spend, as Nate said, is growing even faster. So that's a big story there. Looking at the ad SDK side, as a representation of downloads, we saw the number of apps that had at least one SDK increase from 83% to 89% for both downloads and for monthly active users. And for the consumer spend side, we saw that increase to about 67% for top apps. But again, that's where you're going to find that the most opportunity, right? Because a lot of those games that are monetizing via in-app purchases, that is where people might be a little more concerned about adding in that advertising in there. But it's one of those things where people who are advertising, they have generally around 6 to 8 SDKs involved, but it's really where there's a lot of growth again in terms of being able to expand that overall pie. Okay, and so just looking at what types of games have ad SDKs, right? Casual games dominate, as you would expect by downloads. Casual games make up about 82% of downloads for games overall, but among games that had an ad SDK installed, it's even higher, where casual games, there are about 93%. So this is something what you'd expect. Core games represent about 7% there, right? But again, that's that untapped potential where there's increased chances for being able to incorporate ads, again, in a smart, strategic way to be able to expand that overall pie. And then when you look at things from a time spent perspective, right? Across all games, users spend about 55% of their time in core games, but for games with an ad SDK, that jumps up to about 76%. And for this is mainly going to be led by strategy and RPG. And since these genres combined also make up about half of consumer spend in 2019, publishers can really look there to explore those complementing existing in-app purchase monetization schemes with ad monetization techniques, right? And we'll talk about this a little bit more, but one good example there is just being able to kind of use that advertising linked in-game rewards that can also help boost player engagement and increase revenue. So you don't even necessarily have to think of the revenue streams as separate. They can also actually help influence and improve each other as well. All right, so this is kind of one of the most important things in terms of the information that we saw in the study, right? We looked at games that installed an ad SDK in 2019. So looked at games that had already existed, didn't have one, added one in, and then compared their performance kind of pre and post installation periods. And we saw pretty consistently that downloads and monthly active users improved after the ad SDK installation as compared to before, right? So for most games, you might expect downloads to decline over time as well, but that bump that it's getting, that level that it's increasing by is pretty noticeable. And one of the big things that we're saying here is we're not saying that adding in an ad SDK is magically going to improve your downloads, right? That wouldn't necessarily make any sense. But what we are saying is that if there's such a strong concern that there'd be a negative impact of adding in that ad SDK, in theory, it should be showing up somewhere in the data, right? You should start seeing negative impacts in the data. And that's traditionally not what we're seeing when we dug into it. In fact, we're seeing that these games continue to perform very strongly again when they add that in. It's just about doing it in the right way. And we also looked at this information for pre and post for time spent worldwide. And again, another concern that people might have is you might expect people to leave a game after their experience. If they add in ads, sometimes you might even see that pop up in a survey if someone said anything around that. But in terms of in practice, what actually happens when you actually look through the data is once the ads are served, people are still spending times in the games, and you're also seeing not only increased number of people, but increased time spent in the game post installation as well. So again, another strong performance there. All right, so we also wanted to look at a handful of genres as well, just to give you some highlights of things that we saw. So on the casual side, right, we saw casual games increase strongly in terms of the sessions there. They jumped up nearly 200% in that first month after adding in that ad SDK. So again, casual games, you would expect this would be one of the kind of the easiest one to add ads in because it's kind of expected from that category. But again, in the data, you see strong growth here. Okay, for puzzle games, we also saw strong growth here in terms of total time spent. So puzzle games that added in Ad SDK saw a 66% increase in minutes for that first month and up to 133% for that third month. And again, puzzle games, it's not as casual, but another one where there's frequently natural stopping points where you can insert ads that won't disrupt that experience. Okay, and for simulation games, which frequently can be a little more on the core side, we actually saw a lot of strong increases, including 34% increase in sessions, 36% increase in time spent, and 54% increase in active users as well. So they're continuing to get in new users and continuing to have those users engage well with what was going on in the app. And so that's what we're seeing at a high level for just a handful of categories, but also wanted to talk about some specific examples as well to help give you a good sense of how people are kind of implementing these types of things. Okay, perfect. So we're going to start off with some of these publisher success stories. For the first three here, we're going to look at SundayToz, Mechanist Games, and Habby. So just looking at these three examples, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into each one. Okay, so for this first one here, we see the big highlights. We're calling out 22% increase in retention rate, 25% increase in ARPDAU. And what does that actually mean? What's actually going on? Well, in this case, you have a puzzle game publisher who's kind of concerned that people are going to switch to other games if they start seeing ads in their puzzle games, right? And so what they did is they started giving out free items via rewarded videos, but they were concerned that might diminish sales of IAP. But one of the things you're going to see time and time again with these examples is they tested integrating ads in one game, right? Testing it out in one game, monitoring that impact, monitoring what happens to retention, to ARPDAU, to lifetime value, kind of before expanding to other games in the portfolio, right? Getting that formulation right. And one of the things they saw was they had that increased retention, but also that increase in ARPDAU. And for the second example here, we have a core action RPG publisher, right, who was having issues just monetizing solely versus IAP. So they wanted to diversify that revenue stream. So trying that hybrid monetization model that I've kind of discussed a little bit going back to some of these other categories. And again, they're testing out the format in one game. They're tracking the results to see how it goes. And then one of the things that they're doing is that ad revenue not only increased, but the in-app purchases also increased, right? One of the things that was interesting about this one is the rewarded video actually allowed people to try the items in the game that they could also later buy in the game. So basically giving them that exposure to those items made them more likely to actually increase in terms of in-app purchases as well. So they were seeing a 30% increase in EC3PM as well. Okay, and for the last example here, we have a casual game publisher who wanted to add in-app ads, again, without sacrificing that user experience. They incorporated, again, another example, rewarded video and Archero and tracked those results. And so this game was able to have a successful launch in April of 2019, and it was still averaging over 15 million monthly active users in Q4 of last year. And so this is one of the things it's really interesting. They added in these ads, and they had over 60% of their daily active users seeing these ads. And even with that, they were still able to rank in the top 5 for grossing in 75 countries across the world. All right, and moving on to the next section, we're going to talk just a little bit about some of the regional trends and see how this kind of differs up from country to country. So looking at quite a few countries here. We looked at a wide group because we wanted to look at some countries in EMEA and in the Americas and also in APAC. And one of the things that's interesting is time in app increase across America and EMEA regions quite strongly. all time spent increase across all countries, right? And then there were even more significant increases in many cases for the 3-month period. But you might expect different behaviors, different consumer expectations in different markets. But even with that taken into account, you're seeing strong growth across a variety of different types of markets, and that's kind of the big takeaway here. Okay, and so just wanted to highlight some of the examples that you see for all the countries as well. This report is also available for people to download. So if you want to take a little bit more time and look at some of these, you can do that. I'm just going to run through these, a little quickly, just to give you a top level. One of the things that's interesting here is, again, we're going to look at all these monthly active users, time spent, total sessions. You're going to see increases across the board. And we also mentioned some of the top games that have ad SDKs installed, which aren't always the ones that you would expect that at least have some form of ad SDK integration. Sometimes there's actually some surprises in there, which can be kind of cool. And we're also looking at just the percent of the top 1,000 games by active users that have ad SDKs installed. If there's a high percentage, then that means people in that market are frequently doing this, and it wouldn't necessarily be out of the norm to do that. And when there's low percentages, you might need to be a little more careful about how you're integrating it, but frequently that means you can get more of a first mover advantage, right? And it's just something to keep in mind when you're checking these out. All right, so the United States, we had 87%, and the UK, we had 81% of the top 1,000 games having that ad SDK installed. And again, continued strong growth across the months for the various metrics. France, a little bit lower than the UK, but in that same ballpark, around 77%. Again, strong growth across the metrics there as well. In Germany, same as UK, 81% of the top 1,000 games had ad SDK installed. And again, you're seeing strong growth in terms of what happened, 1 month and 3 months after installation. And Russia, this is one of this group for EMEA. This one's a little bit lower with 69% of the top 1,000 games. But again, you still see strong growth of these 3 metrics, over time. Okay, looking at Japan, we saw about 79% in terms of the top 1,000 games that have ad SDK installed. But again, as I said, you're going to keep seeing it. Monthly active users, time spent, total sessions, everything's performing well. Okay. South Korea, you're also seeing strong growth across the metrics, and also around 77% in terms of top games that have that ad SDK installed. Okay, Vietnam, this is one of the lower ones, potentially the lowest one, actually, I think, of the ones that we looked at, with 54% of top 1,000 games with ad SDK installed. But again, even in that example, you're seeing strong growth across the 3 metrics. Brazil, one thing to keep in mind is, again, not every market is necessarily going to be represented the same, even if you're looking at similar types of cohorts. So not even all emerging markets are going to look the same when you look at this data. Brazil has a very strong amount of the top 1,000 apps with those ad SDKs installed at 83%. But again, consistent story in terms of strong growth for the various metrics. And speaking of, all regions not necessarily having the same result, Brazil, a lot of games. Argentina, you're still over half, but it's about 56% of the top 1,000 games that have that ad SDK installed. But again, seeing strong metrics across the group. And, again, main takeaway from this is that it's something that can work if you're doing it correctly, kind of independently of genre or region. There are success stories that people can look to there in terms of how you can kind of, again, increase that overall pie without scaring away all of the users, right? People will keep using it as long as you're kind of respectful about how you're doing it.
All right, thanks, Amir. Appreciate that. So much to take in, a lot of interesting insight and data to inform our guests today. I'm going to talk about Audience Network specifically here in a moment, but I also wanted to just take the opportunity to remind you about the opportunity to ask questions in the GoToWebinar control panel. Please take advantage of Amir and I. Feel free to ask questions about the specific content in this presentation, but also questions outside of that scope. For instance, what is the current state of the games market or the impact from COVID-19 and the global pandemic. It's all fair game. Take advantage of it, and we will try to get to as many questions as possible at the end. But what is Facebook Audience Network? Audience Network empowers app publishers to build their businesses. That is why we exist. We are an extension off of Facebook's owned and operated properties where our advertisers invest their marketing dollars on the Facebook app and Instagram. We are an extension of that, and our publishers have the tremendous benefit and opportunity of benefiting from the amazing demand that we have been privileged to secure from our amazing advertisers. We are trying very intentionally to ensure that we are thinking about all of our customers, and we try to do that with empathy. We try to do that in innovative ways, in ways that deliver amazing experiences. And so we're thinking of our people or players. We're also committed to delivering quality outcomes for our advertisers, as they are essential partners of ours. And for our publishers, we want to deliver the best possible demand, the best possible CPMs, the best possible experience, formats, tools, and resources for you to be successful deploying ad monetization in your games. We're committed to increased competition. We believe that you should not just be partnering with Facebook. You should be partnering with other demand partners as well. And we are committed to delivering tools and resources in the form of in-app bidding and partnership with our mediation partners to ensure that you are getting the best possible yield out of your ad inventory. I touched on advertiser value. We are very committed to delivering quality outcomes to our advertisers, and that is manifest in the CPMs that we are able to deliver for our publishers. Your audiences, your players, in partnership with Facebook Audience Network, are extremely valuable, and you can reap the rewards of that by partnering with Audience Network. So at Facebook Audience Network, we are primarily investing in formats that are extremely player friendly. I see rewarded video as the single most innovative and celebrated format in our industry over the last 2 decades. It truly does check all the boxes. It is highly efficient in terms of the use of impressions. It is an opt-in type of format that leverages the virtual economies of your games that your players love and that demonstrate their loyalty to you, and that they are willing to go and engage with content in order to receive a benefit from that. Publishers love it because of the efficiency, because it's an opt-in format. Publishers love it because the CPMs are incredibly competitive and incredibly lucrative. And our advertisers love it too. It has been antithetical in the past to think that the use of an incentive can actually create an organic action or outcome. But rewarded video has completely turned that thinking on its head. The use of incentives in the context of rewarded video, in the context of a mobile free-to-play game and the virtual economies, has proven without question that you can drive amazing quality outcomes for advertisers and also use incentives. The thing I like to think about with rewarded video as an analogy would be something that we're probably all missing a little bit these days, and that is going to the movies. I'd love to take my kids on a weekend and go check out a movie together. We buy our popcorn, we buy our drinks, some candy, and we get there early and we get there on time, because not only are we there to check out the feature film, which would be the equivalent of your game, those players are coming to play your game, but we're also wanting to know what other movies might be coming up. We're there for the trailers. We want to see what's happening. And this is just beautifully encapsulated in a mobile game, as your players are there for you. You're the feature film, you're the destination, but they're also interested in understanding what else is out there. And rewarded video can be an additive experience to your game that can also be incredibly lucrative for you. Um, for playables, we are super excited about the potential here. We are already driving a significant amount of our demand through the playable ad format. Playables are a wonderful innovation in the space because they give advertisers the ability to allow players to actually experience what the gameplay is like rather than having to deduce the gameplay from a video or a static image. We have seen tremendous retention numbers and increased KPIs post conversion from playables, and we at Facebook are on the advertiser side, are putting all kinds of resources behind this to make sure that our advertisers can efficiently and quickly create playable creatives. And then on the delivery side, across owned and operated and on audience network, we are delivering these formats both in interstitial and rewarded environments. The movie theater analogy was helpful for you. There is some fear with publishers that why would I want to show my players, my audience, other games that are out there? What if they churn? What if they go into another experience? I'm here to tell you that if you didn't know it already, your players are not only playing your game, they are playing many other titles as well. And if they're not seeing ads in your game, they're seeing ads in the other games that they're playing. Take advantage of the opportunity to monetize these players and to give them a feature that they'll love by giving them an alternative way to transact in your game with rewarded video. In summary, you can monetize your games with ads. We're seeing a huge shift in the marketplace as traditional free-to-play developers who have monetized exclusively via in-app purchase are bringing monetization via ads into their titles. There's plenty of case studies for you on our website about that. We also, Amir shared several, the Habby and Archero one being a very significant one. That title, as he stated, has reached the top 5 top grossing in 75 countries and also has an extremely extensive and beautifully done ad integration. Look to Archero as a case study for the potential for what you could do with ad monetization in tandem with IAP as well. Growth in use of ads for mobile game monetization. We have we're forecasting that the in-app ads marketplace is going to be growing at a faster rate than IAP over the next several years. Research is showing the upside of hybrid monetization or IAP plus advertising monetization. It really is a blue ocean with a lot of potential for folks to grow. Audience Network, we have an amazing team here to support you, both from all of our cross-functional teams like product and engineering to sales and marketing. We are here to support you, and we'd love your feedback on not just this seminar, but how we're supporting you in general. I did mention earlier that we are in favor of and leaders in the space for ensuring that we're providing a sustainable and transparent ecosystem. You can learn more about our initiative and efforts around in-app bidding to ensure that you are getting paid top dollar for each and every impression in your title. And we have heard from many of our publishers that Facebook Audience Network delivers the best demand, the most player-friendly ad experiences in the world, and we're very proud of that as well. Thank you all so much for being here today. This concludes the presentation part of our webinar, but we'd like to transition into a Q&A at this time. And if you haven't gotten your questions in yet, please go ahead and do that, and we'll get to them as we go. Let's see here. Just give me a moment to take a look through some of these. All right, Amir, for you, MoPub has released a couple of reports that explain what's going on with their demand and what are the ECPM trends. Sorry, this is a question for me. The ECPM trends on MoPub. Can we expect something similar from Audience Network? This is a great question, and one we get quite frequently. We do have to balance the the desire to have benchmarking and information insights along these lines with our need to protect the privacy and competitive insight for our publishers. You can, if you don't already have a relationship with a salesperson at Audience Network, you can definitely work with individual team members to get these kinds of insights that will be helpful for you as you think about building your business. Here's a question for Audience Network for me as well. Our games have the best results in ads monetization and ECPMs from Facebook Audience Network. That's great to hear. Thank you. Do we have a preferred mediation partner that we recommend? We do not. We are committed to ensuring that our products work seamlessly with any number of mediation partners. We work with all of the major ones, including Google, MoPub, Iron Source, Max by AppLove and others. And so we want to ensure that we're delivering a quality experience for our publishers through a wide variety of technology partners. Facebook does not do ad tech specifically. We're just committed on bringing you high quality demand. But we don't have a preference, but we are very committed to ensuring that we're delivering a quality experience for all of our different publishers. Amir, this is for you. This is a great one. What do you suspect the post-COVID-19 impact to be on the industry? You have such a unique seat in the mobile app ecosystem, and I'm sure that you all are discussing this quite a bit at these times. So can you talk about COVID-19, the global pandemic, the impact to the games industry, and any future trends or developments that you guys might be predicting?
Yeah. And just background for anyone who may not know App Annie, right? We're big in the mobile data and insights with our platform. So through that information that we have and we provide, not only create all the stuff for this, but you're able to kind of monitor what's been going on with COVID-19 so far. It's definitely been interesting. What I would say is, for the most part, just across the board, mobile usage is way up. Especially in places that are a little more mobile first. So like in China, you might even see like a 30% increase in time spent. In the US, we're a little bit closer to that 10% mark. I think at this point, but for the vast majority of categories, they're seeing some level of improvement in terms of downloads and engagement. For gaming, it's been much bigger. It's like over, like well over 50% in terms of download growth. And essentially what you're seeing is, just thinking about what's going on in the world and what people are looking for. They're looking for a lot of ways. They might be looking for information, might be looking for groceries. From the gaming side, a lot of it is related to, how do you stay busy? How do you stay entertained? And so the growth there has been quite big. And, there's a lot both on the casual and the core side there. So you're definitely seeing a lot of puzzle games that are doing well in casual games, and then also battle royale games as well. So we're and also some of those word and puzzle games as well. And so you're seeing things where it's like, okay, these sessions where people can be entertained, but also people turning to some of that multiplayer content for both entertainment and also for connection. So a couple of things in terms of long-term effects of this, right? You're seeing big increases. At some point when people are outside and things like that, it'll go down a little bit at least, right? If you have more time to use your phone, you're gonna use your phone. But what will almost certainly happen is as people get more and more exposed to mobile, what we tend to see is that when things level off, it's going to level off at a point that's noticeably higher than where we were prior to the pandemic. So people that maybe weren't as likely to game on mobile will have tried it, they will have enjoyed it, and they will continue doing so in the future. So you're going to have more mobile gamers than you had, which is important because mobile gaming already generated more consumer spend than handheld and console and PC and Mac and all those things combined. So it was already much bigger than that. You're going to have even more mobile gamers. The other thing that'll be interesting is I think from the industry perspective, people are going to spend more time probably developing some of the games with features that people are looking for now. So these trends that have already existed, it's almost just accelerating them. So you're going to have more people looking for ways for incorporating multiplayer games or being able to connect with friends and play games collaboratively, whether they're word puzzle games or otherwise. And then you're also seeing increases in things like Discord, right? Like that app where you're able to communicate on that. So looking for apps that are either incorporating the ability to chat together in the app itself, or even just letting people know how they can use that functionality kind of in partnership with that. So you might see some cross advertising or some cross partnerships going on there, so that when people are playing, they can still socialize with others, because that's one of the big things, right? That you don't want to just necessarily play the game. Sometimes you want to be able to talk with your friends and family at the same time. So these things that might have seemed more like nice to haves before are now primary selling points that will exist in these games. And we're already seeing it pop up in app names and app descriptions kind of being moved to the top, and you'll see it in advertisements themselves. And those are some of the bigger changes. So overall shift, consumers using more mobile devices will continue using them afterwards. You're also going to get more in-depth mobile games, but then also a bigger focus on social and multiplayer elements.
Awesome. Thank you. That's super insightful and super helpful. We're also getting questions from our audience on the impact on demand drop off. So overall supply and demand dynamics with respect to COVID-19, which is with what we're seeing at Facebook and the audience network. It's no secret, Mark Zuckerberg, our CEO, has talked about the incredible surge in usage that our products and services are seeing right now. Which is, it's a wonderful feeling to be a part of a company that is providing an essential role in difficult times. And more family, friends, colleagues are turning to Facebook and to WhatsApp and Instagram, whether it's a live concert or a jam session on Instagram, or if it's attending a religious service on a Sunday via Facebook Live, or keeping in touch with friends and family around the planet on WhatsApp. We are simultaneously seeing a huge surge in the usage of Facebook owned and operated products, as well as a big surge in the number of users we're seeing across our network as well. And this ties into what Amir is seeing as well from his perspective. And so while usage and audience size is up, as we are preparing and buckling up for a potential economic recession, which seems by most analyst experts to be sort of an undeniable fact and impact of all of this, especially with the record unemployment numbers we've seen. Businesses, typically start to make cuts to prepare for that where they need to, and advertising dollars and budgeting towards advertising tends to get hit relatively quickly up front. And so what the effect you see and what you have happening is, as supply is growing and demand in some areas is being pulled back, CPMs or costs are decreasing. And so what we have seen at Facebook is that our gaming partners are taking this as an opportunity to invest heavily in acquisition, and to it's tricky, right? Because you don't necessarily know what the long-term impact on your LTVs are going to be. And so how much do you invest? Do you double down? Do you continue to pour money in? And are you concerned about the economic impact? But by and large, we are seeing big moves from our gaming partners as they take advantage of these record, these crazy and historic times. And as costs are down, we are seeing them take advantage of that to grow their business, which is, something that I was referring to at the beginning of this call. We're all very fortunate to be operating in a space that can thrive during a recession or during a difficult global disruption, such as the one we're seeing now. On Audience Network, there's a question specifically about CPMs and revenue. I would say that some of our publishers have seen some decreases in overall CPM, but with usage and requests being up, revenue has continued steadily throughout this period, which is good to see for a lot of our publishers. And so I think that it just depends on your audience and how you're approaching the monetization of your business. So I hope that's helpful. There definitely is a lot to manage. And so if you are operating an ad monetization business, it's definitely worth taking another look at your settings and your optimizations. If you're managing a waterfall, look at your CPM floors, make sure you're not missing out on a lot of the opportunity that's out there. I'll also put in a plug for in-app bidding at this point. Bidding automates the yield monetization of your supply, and it takes away the need for you to be managing a waterfall and CPM floors and whatnot. And so we are seeing tremendous performance from our bidding partners, our bidding publishers during this downturn as well. Let's see here. We have time for one or two more questions. Okay, do you foresee there being a decrease of in-app purchases and an increase in ad revenue as a result of COVID-19? Amir, do you want to take a stab at this one? I have some thoughts on this as well, but would love to get your thoughts from your side as well.
Yeah, I mean, this one's going to be an interesting one because it's something we've talked about in some of our past reports is just kind of like the kind of like mobile adoption curve and just how things move where in the beginning you see a lot of downloads, and then later on you see an increase in usage, and then after that you start seeing the bump in revenue, right? So it's almost like these three stages as markets go through shifts in terms of where you see the impact. So for COVID-19, we've already seen the big bump in downloads, we've seen the big bump in usage, but what will be interesting is just what's going to happen on that revenue side. The fact that people are just spending more time in mobile, right? Independently of everything going on, that would suggest that you would see some level of increase in spend. But given the everything that's going on in the current economic situation, people might be a little less likely to want to spend in mobile games. They might be saving up on money. So as of yet, what we've seen is things kind of holding steady with how it was pre-COVID. So we haven't seen it impact the market yet. I could potentially see like maybe a little decrease in terms of average revenue per user, but with increased number of users, it might still hold steady. But that's one we're definitely keeping an eye on for sure, at least from the revenue side.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I agree with everything you said. I do think that you will see, my gut is that you will see console gaming, large purchases, like $60 titles on new releases, and subscription-based games, PC games will probably take a bigger hit than free-to-play. I think free-to-play gaming is uniquely positioned right now to thrive during these times, as people will be more cost conscious, and it provides an even bigger reason for you to think about how to monetize your non-paying audience with advertising. That said, I also think even though free-to-play games didn't exist during the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009, or at least it existed on Facebook Canvas on desktop, but not necessarily in the mobile format that we see today. Um, you know, a lot of times when in economic downturns, things like simple pleasures like beer and ice cream and yeah, video games and entertainment people tend to invest in those things as they're looking for ways to um, you know, break up the monotony of maybe being unemployed or underemployed, or today where we're sheltered in place, people are looking for entertainment options. That might be everything. I think we had a good chance to get. Someone's asking about the possibility of displaying a survey or a poll in a rewarded ad to collect information instead of doing a game ad. I do think that's really interesting. I know companies like Tapjoy offer that in their offer wall products, and there's a great place for you to access that as a use of incentives to facilitate the completion of surveys. We don't do that today. I don't necessarily foresee us ever getting into the offers space, but there is a proven marketplace for that um, for that as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I really feel like we had a good amount of questions and engagement. I hope you found the content helpful and additive, and really appreciate everyone stopping by today. So with that, Amir, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your partnership and your insight. And thank you to our attendees for joining us as well. Have a great day and stay safe out there, and all the best.